So I'm now up to my third commentary at 1 in the morning. The Bucks got Bogdan in a sign-and trade to go along with getting Drew. They stole him from the Hawks. Atlanta definitely wanted him. That rumor was out there. This says something about the Buddy Hield situation, I have to imagine, where it kind of seemed like it was a bit of a pick one or the other situation. Well, in theory, Buddy Hield might be okay now. We don't really know with that one just yet. So when it comes to a sign and trade, it has to be either a 3 or a 4 year deal with only the first year guaranteed. I have to assume the Bucks would like to hold on to Bogdan. He's a talented offensive player. We'll get into it in a moment. But when you look at the money that was traded here between Ilyasova's 7 and DJ Wilson's 4.5 and DiVincenzo's 3, it gets you to about $14 million. So I guess we can speculate that Bogdan's going to get a contract around that area. Now, did the Kings have to do this? To be honest, I don't know. I mean, we don't know the specific details, but is it crazy to think they could have held on to Bogdan? I don't know, man. But they're going to get DiVincenzo, who can maybe be a good player. DJ Wilson's had at least a couple moments for the Bucks here and there. Anyway, for Milwaukee, we'll get into the X's and O's and all that good stuff, but similar to the Drew video, should also be said here, it's pretty obvious the Bucks made this move not just to improve the team, but to hopefully convince Giannis to sign the Supermax and to stay. I mean, several teams have made it pretty obvious that they'd be willing to leave their cap space open years before next offseason to have a play of Giannis, of course. And, I mean, I'm sure Giannis is aware of this. And so in the Bucks' eyes, this just gives them one extra thing that they can say to Giannis to be like, hey, we are serious about being a contender for as long as you're in your prime. They got a shot creator. Bogdan has had moments where he's run isolations, he's run pick and roll, he's been a shooter, he's moved off the ball, and you're just going to put him into that nucleus of the Milwaukee Bucks now suddenly improved offense. It was already pretty damn good, but sometimes it was a little too reliant on transition offense, that sort of thing. Drew can run pick and roll with Giannis. Bogdan can run pick and roll with Giannis. You hope Budenholzer does that. All of these guys are smart players who can set screens and then cut to the basket, or they can run a handoff play with, let's say it's Giannis handing the ball off at the elbow. Sometimes it's Brook Lopez doing the same thing. It can just be a bunch of guys that you have to care about with Drew, Bogdan, Middleton, and Giannis, with Lopez spacing the floor out, to where Milwaukee could be very difficult to defend. I mean, just looking at their starting lineup, teams are going to have to leave Brook Lopez open. They're going to have to dare Drew to make some threes. I guess you could dare Bogdanovic as a passer. I think he's been quietly kind of good as a passer, even if he hasn't had the opportunity to really show it off in Sacramento. So we'll have to see if you have a lot of success with that. So they're going to be tough, no doubt about it. If we see more Giannis post-ups, there's a shooter everywhere. I mean, one of the weird things with the Bucks is they would look like a great three-point shooting team, but they wouldn't always be one. Between Giannis and Wesley Matthews as their two-guard, who wasn't much of a threat, even if he could hit a wide-open three, and and also Bledsoe, of course, and turning that into Drew, who can do more off the dribble than Bledsoe, Bogdan, who's way more of a threat than Wesley Matthews off the dribble as a shooter, pretty much in every way. Yeah, I mean, Bogdan's three-point shooting for his career, 37% on 5.5 a game. He shot 40% on catch-and-shoot threes on about 5 attempts a game this previous season. In 2019, his catch-and-shoots were also 40% on about 3 a game. So we imagine he can be a reliable floor spacer for him. And I also don't think Bogdan's going to hurt their defense too much. Like, yeah, he's now the weakest link in their starting lineup defensively. But you figure Drew can defend the best of the two guards. Middleton can defend the best wing. You got Giannis and Lopez patrolling around the basket. Like, as long as Bogdan's not a total disaster defensively, which he probably won't be, then you're going to be fine. Sure, teams are going to look to attack him, because where the hell else are they going to attack with this Bucks defense? But I think you can live with it. I do. Now, I mentioned Budenholzer's offense and how it can sometimes get rough in the playoffs in the Drew video. And I will say again here that has been a thing where there's more motion in the regular season and then the playoffs, it gets stagnant. But there's so many guys who can make a play at this point, then that should help him out. Thinking about a Giannis at center lineup, it's Drew, Bogdan, Middleton, Giannis, who the hell else is still on this team off the bench? So we'll see if the Bucks can shore up the roster with a couple of minimum contracts or whatever they may still have left in terms of exceptions or whatever. But this is good, and this is very good. And in the Eastern Conference, you got to go up against some good defenses. The Celtics can switch across a lot of positions, and you got Marcus Smart, who's of course tough to deal with. Lowry is similar like that, and we'll have to see what the Raptors roster looks like, but I think it's fair to think Toronto can pretty much run it back and be really good next season. Miami's going to be good defensively, of course. We're going to have to see how good on defense the Nets are. I know the Sixers just had a not ideal season, but they still project to be a great defensive team. But the point being is the Bucks offense should be looking better, because at times Miami made them second-guess themselves offensively when they formed the wall around the basket and made Giannis pass out to guys. I mean, sure, Middleton did what he could, but while you can certainly give Budenholzer crap for the offense not having as much motion and maybe not using Giannis as straightforward enough in terms of ISOs and post-ups and whatever, not like top-of-the-key ISOs, but elbow ISOs, baseline ISOs, that sort of thing, you could also say the talent wasn't good enough. Well, now the talent is definitely good enough. You got Drew who can play in the pick and roll, Bogdan can do it, they both can spot up, they both can attack a closeout and keep the ball moving. And, of course, to go with what I said earlier, it once again, hopefully, convinces Giannis to stay. So, yeah, it's good, man. As a Celtics fan, I am more scared of the Bucks now. So, yeah, are there any potential ways you can be cynical about this move? I mean, maybe you could be like, well, Bogdan is still not going to be able to get the shots that he really wants, and maybe he'll not have the energy that you'd really like as a result, or maybe defensively he'll be bad, or something else that I can't really think of. But I feel like this is good. The other thing, too, is if Giannis still ends up leaving, which at this point he'd be walking away from a damn good basketball team, but if for whatever reason he did, Bogdan could be used as a trade, Drew potentially used as a trade. His contract doesn't have too much time left on it. Middleton potentially used as one as well. That's kind of a different conversation, but I guess it's just something to mention. But yeah, cool stuff for the Bucks.